So do we start with mandala? Yeah, so we start with mandala offering. Then we're going to go into Lamrim Kappa Guru Yoga. Then refuge bonachita, and then we might live happily ever after. All right. So we're doing a mandala offering now. It is day of the 15th of the first month in the Tibetan calendar, which is culminating 15 days of miracles. Om Vajabhumiya Hum Vanchen Segi Sashi Om Vajarakiya Hum Chi Chari Koyogi Koe Usu Rigya Purira Shalupapo Lo Zambulinu Palanchu Jan Raminya Luta Lupa Ngaya Tangaya Shen Yoden Tala Chodro Draminyen Draminyen Gida Rinpoche Riwo Pa Sangishin Dojoyompa Mamu Paye Loto Kolo Rinpoche Nobu Rinpoche Zumo Rinpoche Lombo Rinpoche Lambo Rinpoche Tacho Rinpoche Mapu Rinpoche Teche Poye Pumba Ge Ma Chewa Ma Lu Ma Gama Metoma Dupoma Nasema Chichama Nima Dawa Rinpoche Du Chole Namba Gyawe Gyatse Usulata Miye Panchom Punso Soba Matsawa Meba Sanchi Do Wadida Chichen Sawa Tangyupa Chebe Banden Lama Dampananda Keba Duya Yongi Gewe Shenyen Chembo Geshe Punzun Tsultrim Pa Shambo Shengane Teba Chembo Sunchu Samo Shuwe Yondu Shinkambu Wagi O Tuje Drowe Tundu Shesuso Shene Danso Drowa Lamnuma Sanchen Tenchen Tamchela Tuse Wachen Bogone Chingi Laptu So Sashi Purgi Jushi Meto Tamri Rabling Shi Nide Gempadi Sangye Shindu Mite Owa Gidrokunamda Shinla Chupa Shojetsun Lama Dampa Kyenam Gichoku Kala Kyense Chuzinti Jita Tsampa Duje Zimala Sabye Chuki Chapa Abdu Soidam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamniyatayami. So we will now recite Lamrim Kappa Guru Yoga. From the heart of the savior of the 100 deities of the Shita, on the peak of cloud resembling clap of extremely wide-shaped bird, King of Nama, listen, Lawson Drakpa, please come here together with your sons. In the sky before me, a lion throne, lotus and moon, my perfect pure Guru smiles with delight. Supreme fill of merit from my mind of faith, please abide for your hand eons to spread the teachings. Your holy mind is the intelligence that understands the full extent of objects to be known. Your holy speech with its excellent explanation is an ear ornament of those of good fortune. Your holy body is radiantly beautiful with glory renowned. To you are meaningful to see, hear and remember are prostrate. Pleasant drinking water, various flowers, fragrant incenses, lights, scented waters, and so forth. Ocean of cloud-like offerings, both actually arranged and mentally emanated, I offer to you the supreme field of merit. Whatever non-virtue of body, speech, and mind, especially those opposite to the three vows that have collected from beginningless time, I confess each and every one with fervent regret from my heart. You strove for much learning and practice in this degenerate age and made your freedoms and richnesses meaningful by abandoning the eight worldly concern. Savior will snaily rejoice in your extensive deeds. Perfect, pure, holy gurus from the billion clouds of wisdom and compassion in the sky of the Dharmakaya. Please let fall a rain of fun and excessive Dharma upon the receptacle of those to be subdued exactly as they need. Now, whatever virtue I've collected, benefit the teachings and all transmigrated beings, and in particular may it cause the essence of perfect pure loss and Drakpa's teachings to shine forever. Sa shi pegi junshi meto dang re ra len jini de genpa di sangye shindu mite uwai droku namda shin la shu pa shu. By the merits of having offered this mandala to Lama Tsongkhapa and his two sons, may I and my family members and all sentient beings be able to meet, practice, and actualize the teachings of the victorious one, Losang Drakpa, where the immorality of an eminently pure way of life was courageous and extensive conduct of the sons of the victorious one, and accomplished the yoga of two stages of supreme bliss and emptiness. Idang Guru Ratna Mandala Kamniyatayami. But the force of having fervently requested in this way, hollow beings of white light are emitted from the hearts of the perfect pure Father and Sons, and combining into one enter my crown. White nectar, the color of milk, flows from the opening of the tube of white light, cleansing all my sicknesses, spirit harms, negative karmas, obscurations, the imprints without exception. My body becomes as pure and clear as crystal. So in page 13, we're going to recite the 5-line mixima verse 3 times. Mi me te we te chen chen rezi, ji me ken be wan po jam pe yang, du bu ma lu jom ze san we da, kan che ken be tsung ge tsung ga pa, lo san tra pe shang la so wa de. Mi me te we te chen chen rezi, ji me ken be wan po jam pe yang, du bu ma lu jom ze san we da, kan che ken be tsung ge tsung ga pa, lo san tra pe shang la so wa de. Mi me te we te chen chen rezi, ji me ken be Wampo Jampeya, Dupu Malu Jomse Sanweda, Kanche Kebe Tsugen Tsongapa, Lo Sandra Pe Shabla Soa De.
Sangye Chodam Soji Chonula Chanjo Bardo Dani
Japsuchi, Dagi Chushe Gibe Tsonangi, Drola
Drolam
Penche
Penche Sangye
Sangye Drupara
Drupara Sangye
Chodan
Chodam Soji
Sogi
Chonula
Chonamla,
Chanjo
Chancho
Bardo
Bardo
Dani
Dani
Japsu
Japsuchi,
Dagi
Dagi
Chushe
Chushe Gibe
Yevan
Tsonangi,
Zedagi
Drola
Drolam Penche
Penche
Sangye
Sangye
Drupara
Drupara
Sangye
Chodan
Chodam Soji
Sogi Chonamla,
Chonula Chanjo
Chancho
Bardo
Bardo
Dani
Dani
Japsu
Japsuchi,
Dagi
Dagi
Chushi
Chushe Gibe
Gibbon the
Tsonangi,
Dagi
Drola
Drolam Bench
Penche
Sanjin
Sangye
Drupara
Drupara
Show Kanki Tuzini Zone Tawa Tamje Bambi Chere Tambi Chun Denze Kodam Jela Chanselu. Good morning, everyone. I'm executive introduction layer. Some years.
So greeting everyone, particularly because today is the day of miracles, so it's a Buddhist holidays. Greeting everyone.
That no Tamkela Tuji Chamber Dembi Democratic Chinti 가서다 지당 가오빠도 매비 가르 듣더니 뭐뭐 저거 산기 쓰나야 아니 간수도 징올이야 아니 제바텐치 잠블린딜이야 또 초구쭉 제바시치 되니 간지 추마인 기 직 작당 모송기 제 직 나게 작독 잔섬을 소비 아니 다들레 아니 넘버 개위기 아니 제바템비 니모디 안 잠블린델이야 다 디리차거로스 인자 딘지 톤다 믹스기 되니 디니몰이야 차 준비지야다 간지 템비 까진 템비 거네 아니 소수기 리버카요기 아니 개위 촐이야 은 상로탄야 티 지기어라서 진주소.
So it's considered to be the day of miracles. So we follow the Buddha as a teacher. We regard the Buddha to be the kind teacher, having skillful means that were developed over countless eons as practicing the steps of the path. For us, the Buddha appeared for us as disciples or followers, you could say, as supreme emanation body, supreme Nirmanakaya. And in order to then, so the Buddha, you can say, enacted the deed of appearing in this form. And he did that it performed those miracles, so to speak, in order to pacify, in order to attain victory over afflictive states of mind, such as anger, attachment, ignorance, pride, jealousy, sense of competitiveness, and so forth. So the Buddha performed those deeds in order to show how to attain victory over those afflictive emotions. So we then remember the kindness of the teacher. And today, as much as we can, we think of virtue. We think in a virtuous way.
데다 학든도다 디 니모데야 답되니 아니 장고놈 son가버 쳔비다 로트기 콩래야 아니 배간징 좀 비기다 사딘 sul라 칸래야 아니 템버 템비 원비 꾸니 여버 텔래야 아니 우긴 서치니 간지 초그 뚜기 비다 아니 남베 톤다 우긴 소니 조이신 너블야 우긴 통 전지 아니 준비 하장 야채무식 나왔니 고존에 단다 파르도더니 아니 물론 채무 생인디 다 댄서 숨 조이키비다 아니 벽 공부 만부 쇼지기로 딱 빠르잖아요 송지체니 아니 세버 정은이 모델이야 다직 소소래야 매나마도 아니 야 준비치치 초바프치 아니 디니 모델이야 다지 공반지 산트로야리 고순토든지야리 아니 랑기자요라만 제라 소바 간지 아니 마 um봉 심전라야 짐바타야 창로다 허다 바다다 단다 바다다 도스니니 연사 당간주에 균진치 아니 디린델이야 직사제 마동 상 아니 초바피야리 몰람자야리 어떠소드니 딘디 치기어를 제국으로 왔어.
저는 이 초랑한서 이 조간라.
라.
이 제림부체 이 우겐 피에 이 초랑한서
조간나.
조간. 이 간든 계정으로.
말.
So so today is the 15th in the first month of the Tibetan year, but also 600 years ago, there lived a great Tibetan master called Lamrim. So he lived in Tibet, the land of snows. And about 600 years ago, particularly this date, he made a special offering in the most holiest shrine in Tibet. So the shrine is called Jokang, and the Jokang houses a magnificent statue of the Buddha. So particularly that day, Lama Tsongkhapa offered a very impressive crown ornament to the Jo statue at the Jokang. And not only that, also from that time on, till the present day, particularly this time of the year, to celebrate what is called the Great Prayer Festival, or the Great Munam, in which people come together, particularly this day of the year, and get involved with a lot of creation of virtue. So they visit different temples and different shrines. Like, for example, many visit the three great monastic seats of the Gelug tradition, but likewise they also visit other temples. They make offerings, and also they perform charity, act of charity, make donations and offerings to the impoverished and so forth. So this is what people have been doing for many centuries. In Tibetan society. And also when we think of what we are doing here, then today we also made special offerings. We also make prayers and so forth in following this tradition, particularly of creating virtue this day of the year, which is called Day of Miracles.
Terda tedring anzu shuyagi lamram gi sajetian kare slaundi jendun tunyi gi lo jangwa changchu tunyi gi lo jangwa jangbin jeba semgi ngwe song tambola lo ti kibi rishitra batang lo ti kiba ngwe tambola ni simjin laya sem nyomba batang simjin yong namba draba 세 심진 용 넘버 drop telya margomba chinchamba chinsoba kazing samtereda nibala sums margomba chinchamba chinsoba gombas dichagdos.
So particularly today, as we're going to continue with Lama Tsongkhapa's meeting presentation on the states of the path of enlightenment, we're looking at the way to develop the attitude that is seeking to benefit others. And to develop the attitude of seeking to benefit others, Lama Tsongkhapa explains how to cultivate, or how to meditate on the recognition of all sentient beings as having beings one mother, becoming mindful of the kindness, remembering the kindness, and developing the wish to repair the kindness. So so I'm looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's text, establishing that they all have likable aspects. All sentient beings have a likable aspects. This section explains how to develop that sense of affinity with all sentient beings, and meditating on them as being one's mother, remembering the kindness, and meditating on repaying their kindness.
So the carriers rather dring on the delian zum goyagi again so rodi and sangi with chulia to yoba and sangi with chew zawadi similar to yoba similar to go and so carries lounding on someone lord devan devada dunga mendeba nyamba inza and in devi gudro go yobata dunga zawadi chom go yobati inza di 아니 샘그틴이 죽고야지다 샘그틴이 셀고야지 레마도 젠치 우비고 토니 아 용탑 싸원이니 메바디 아니 상기 우스시진 당간줄에 람데 디나연자 안간줄 테 고텔야다 아 슈니타 리버 드림 고고라스라.
So mainly when we think of the cause and conditions contributing to us meeting here today, well, we're here in order to, you can say, partake of the Buddha Dharma. And the teachings or the Dharma that the Buddha taught depends upon the mind. It depends upon the mind in that we recognize that all of us are the same in seeking happiness and well-being and wanting to avoid suffering. And if this is what we seek, if we seek happiness and well-being, we need to cultivate the causes for happiness and well-being. If we wish for no suffering, we need to eliminate the causes of suffering. And all of that depends upon the mind. It's done on the basis of the mind. So rather than looking elsewhere at other phenomena and thinking that if we deal with other things other than the mind, we're going to be able to create the causes for happiness and to eliminate the causes of suffering, The Buddha saw that the way to do it, directly saw that the way to do it would be to deal with the mind or independence upon the mind. So this is what we deal with here, and we also then become focused. We become focused on developing those mental techniques.
콘솔라 전 슈기는 데인들 엔초그레스 대면은 데발레 데스톤 본토스 전 슈기 뭐나
So hello for the people from I assume from the Bhutanese community. So if you'd like to have a seat, there are some cushions and some spaces here that you can take a seat and just join us if you would like to.
어디리 딘자 다조 셈레 투기어 반자 베낭간조다 제 nganzu nyongye chubde de kariyores laondi chagdang gi loji ondi ro chagdang gi loji ondi ani dingi ani kibu mebadi nganzu sorgora ta sortugora terta dinzata chagdang gi lodi ani kandrachen pa ani chomgores laondi samma deva devata dunga mendeva chikjuri himbati 균센 손이 아니 찬념 기직다 투야기 로지 균투 바이나 아니 차단 슈촌 저에 임바디 야시 야단 바이 다 제스라.
So now when we look at our mind based upon a personal experience, we can recognize that when anger or attachment arise from the bottom of our heart to make us unhappy. So this heartfelt unhappiness that arises when attachment and anger arise in our mind. We know that based upon a personal experience. And therefore, when we think of our experience in relation to that, the question arises, how then do we destroy that mental unhappiness attributed to anger, attachment, and so forth? Well, to destroy that, we use reasons such as recognizing first off that all of us are the same in seeking happiness and well-being and wishing to avoid suffering. And through that, we develop a mind that is more equanimous or more balanced. And if the mind becomes more balanced or equanimous, levels of anger and attachment will decrease.
들이간지 간주다 균센 땅난지기 토네 베나다 콘드망부 식사야지 윤거여라스 두상마로 콘드 사고야기 균센 싸원이니 매바지라야 아니 비다지 균센 땅난진 진치니 디토네다 아니 콘드세 콘드왕기 소수다 마기바 소수 셈 마기바 마세 베기다 지금 류기 남규리나 베 아니 쑥 강기베 아니 톰문되게 차야 동그 남규 로드야 아니 지 재단 로드야 아니 저버도 차를 다 참말로 베는 콘트톤 다 딘디 용거라 다디 딘디 용거라스라.
States of mind such as anger arise in our mind, and we use pseudo reasonings in order to justify our anger. So we think that our anger is justified, that there is a reason for getting angry, but the reasons that we use are just facsimiles or pseudo reasons. In an actual fact, anger is not a rational state of mind. So anger arises depending upon those pseudo reasons that we come up with in order to justify anger. And then our mind is made unhappy. Our mind is made unhappy, but also when we look at the actions that we take motivated by anger, our physical expression changes, our facial expression changes, and it puts other off. Not only puts other off, we also behave badly, negatively because of anger.
들다 네 탁초비 돈에 드니 라렌라 까마토베네야 탁초비 돈에 슈투야라야 안절에 콘트로 사구비 균센 남다 지에 메바디 아니 식다 초비 돈에 슈투기스.
And particularly one thing that Geshe is totally resolute, completely convinced that there is no correct reason that we can use in order to justify anger. So Geshe is trying as much as possible to show that there is no rational approach to anger, in that um, anger is not justified. There are no correct reasons that justify anger.
디톨이야 알아서 계란즈 채웠다는 콘트 사고비 균생식 통과다 간주 콘트 사고라서 콘트 사고가야 콘트 사고비 균생식 손다 콘트 사딩 빼먹어 디톨이야 빼는 간주 돌리즈로 채워나 야채 야탐바 콘트 사무고비 균생 간주 채워틀링 토니 니 야채 야탐바 렌텔 투야기 딩수 딩알 예스로 딩수 알 예스.
But then when we think of the reasons that we employ when we get angry, for us, the reasons that we use seem to be valid reasons. So it's good to have a discussion about that. When we see valid reasons, or when we come up with those pseudo reasons that for us seem to be valid reasons for becoming angry, it's good to have a discussion about it. And Geshe is quite sure that certainly through having a discussion like that, it can show 100% show that there is no rationale behind anger.
terda kondosawe kabdulaya ginzen karda yimuwanji yetum mowanji tonchene kanji sosu lola mapapi wangi ani sem tukdre chayachi ro sosu lola mapapa de 용 choyajiki yungu yormado 용 misikwaji 용 sigmaros 용 misikwaji 용 misikwanza 용 강 용야 di 용 sigwaji wanza di lolaya shombayina 아니 셈 주고 말했어. 공도 싸고 말했어. 됐다. 공도 싸고 말했어. 그래서 다 얘도 뭔가디 소수 따서 지레마도 얘도 용하지 따투야기 탑시지 여반자 드리디송 것도 다 얘도 뭔가 따투야기 탑시지 니까둘이야. 저 얘도 뭔가 따투야기 탑시지 여반자 됐다고 그랬어. 됐대바는 공도디 용금도 셈 주고디 용금도
So when anger arises in our mind, it arises with respect to something that we find to be unappealing. So something appears to us and appears to be totally unappealing. We cannot get our head around it. We cannot really fit it within our mind because it does not appear to be appealing at all. So one thing to keep in mind is that when something like that arises in our mind, when it appears to our mind in this way, we react as if it is not possible for something like that to occur. Our mind is made unhappy and then becomes angry. We think that this is impossible. It's impossible to deal with. It is impossible for something like that to happen to me. But then when we think of the different things that we go through, we find that actually that it is not impossible for all those different things to occur. Actually, it's very plausible or possible for them to arise. So why then do I react as if I think that this is impossible? So that's one way of thinking about things that agitate our mind and make them be completely unappealing. That's one thing. Another thing is to look at something that you find currently unappealing and try to look at it from different perspective in order to find some appeal in the object. And this is part of what we're doing here when we're looking at this section of the text that explains how to find the appeal in others. In, for example, meditating on them as on others as being your mother, remembering the kindness, meditating on repaying the kindness. We make others appear to our mind with a sense of affection, with a sense of appeal.
데르다 뭔가다 기억담바다 상진이 진다 안 다디 바르다 랑 진진 자윌라메 투고 바르 코남비 땅간줄이야 로존당가 름바땡원디 탑땡원디 냠탑이 심진선난자 비 동거기 나유 심진라야 이용기 남바곰술디 예동와 따줄디 아니 마시 진진기 토니 예동와 곰술 찍순거레스 야 군조 lama gibi shinyin la ya mate pa kiya la soba ta jige dobi tabla ya ani yonding gomchin yonding chon ta tsuk ton ro legbi chan dewondi ani yungjin tongroda mlebi chon debayana ani yid mohwaji kon toya di chunyi inza lebi chon ani deni ani 대박검수 진직이 돈다 nganzoya tigiyoro.
So such techniques were taught or practiced by the great masters of the past, beginning with the Buddha, all the way to our lamas, our spiritual masters. So they looked at sentient beings which are beset by suffering, tormented by suffering, and they came to view them with a great sense of appeal. They found them appealing to the heart or to the mind. And the methods that you use in order to do that is to develop the recognition that all of those suffering sentient beings have been their mothers before. So through that, they taught us how to develop that sense of appeal, or finding others as being appealing to our mind, being attractive to our mind in that sense. It is similar to how you overcome non-faith with respect to the Buddha. So it is possible that in thinking of the Buddha, a sense of non-faith will arise in your mind. So in order to overcome a lack of faith, you need to think of the good qualities of the Buddha. So when you think of the good qualities, then a sense of appeal appears in those good qualities. Whereas if you turn your mind to negative qualities of anyone, either the Buddha or someone else, let's say, if you turn your mind to the negative qualities, then a lack of appeal will appear to your mind. You find it completely unappealing, disagreeable with you. So in the same way that in order to overcome a lack of faith in the Buddha and such, you need to then think of the good qualities and then make your mind be drawn to them. Also, when we think of developing that sense of closeness to others, in finding the appeal of others, we need, as this text suggests, to develop the recognition first of all as considering others as having been our mothers.
데르다 이내야 원이 바 탓도온디 이도온도 소리 이도모어디 가르레스 세주 제바이나 아니 이도모어디 랑귤 예베게 차담 모송디 이도모의 쳇 라 차담 모송기 비케사기 아니 대원들 둥을 문제비게 아니 속된 참말로 이동어레스 야시자도 이동어레스 간스나 네루 탐지 캠비 순저치를 쓰바이나야 이동어티 스투거라스 율코란 이동어지 임바이나 아니 산기기 일동원 산기 찬성 그 이동어지 쓰바이나 디 록시르와스 디마르와스 군주 로로바타 제빵바인자 군주 이동원 스투발이야 nganzu yidumongwaji tonya di karis nandi rangi gyuki chagdam monsum chibaris. Inza yidumongwadi rangi gyuki chagdam monsum yidumongwadi pigigi ani simjin ti yimba di rach chubayna teni ani chagdam monsum shukchung roya diya yashigядам pendo yosarawas rwa yungurada.
So then when we ask ourselves, finally, what is appealing, what is not appealing? What is, in that sense, attractive, or what has a sense of attractiveness and what doesn't have? Well, what is not appealing are on afflictive states of mind, anger, attachment, and ignorance. There is no sense of appeal in those afflictive states of mind. What we can find appealing are sentient beings who are the same in seeking happiness and well-being and wanting to avoid suffering. So when you think about reality, really, when you think about others, you can see the appeals in others in that you recognize how they are like you, seeking happiness and well-being and wanting to avoid suffering. So the Buddha or Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have done it, and they did not find any sense of unattractiveness or nothing unappealing in other living beings. So otherwise, we couldn't say that they have wrong consciousnesses in their mind. But then when we look at how we find others to be unappealing, disagreeable with us, we can recognize how this is attributed to our own afflictive states of mind involved with seeing others as unappealing. So if we rid ourselves of that vantage point of seeing others as unappealing, we when we'll be able to cultivate the state of mind that finds everyone appealing, certainly will benefit our mind in terms of reducing the degrees of anger and attachment that we have.
배낭 nganzu 수수기 이동 와인 바이나 가르 제바이나 양 공도 사이분도 asro 사이마다 수수 이동 와이나 미디 배나 미더 차전 가르 제바이나 양 공도 사이마레스 계지 수수 이동 마음바 차바이나 파조 미디게 수단의 게모 개바이나 공도 사야 깨져 셔바이나 공도 사야 수 믹스 때바이나 공도 사대지 디차기도 asro 디자 자와 투사디 수수 이동 오모 레마도 피기 율디기 넬루디 자와니니 마레스 딘자 아니 예동원디 피기다 지 연den기 찬 상당바이나 로 미순데 소차 간다징이 바이나야 콜레야 렉비차 맹이지 요 마레송라 베남 부신징 바이나야 콜레야 아니 상기롱 릭지 요레스 로 딘자 다 미징 바이나야 릭 요바자 마세 디 상기 트윈 투야기 니베기 피기 자와 아니 셔럽다 잠바싱인디 란진 행기니 여대바치 딘티 톤 상담바이나 아니 용 통투야지 응게우 담바도 총연자 nganzulaye yungures rada di susu gomagum di susu lagbale yobasik dindi sungudo asara sanjigda.
So if you find something or someone to be unappealing, not attractive to your mind, you'll get angry with them. Whatever they do, if you find them unappealing, you'll get angry at that person. Even if they smile at you, you'll get angry. If they say something, if they speak to you, it will make you angry. If they look at you, it will make you angry if you find them unappealing. So there is a tendency to think that it is in the object, but actually it's in your mind, in our mind, that sees those people as unappealing. So then when we look at other living beings, rather than continuing to hold on to them as being unappealing to us, we can remind ourselves that they also have good qualities. Actually, no one is bereft of positive qualities. Even insects, you can say, have good qualities, such as, for example, when we think of nature, it's Buddha nature or Buddha lineage. Even insects have Buddha lineage, which is a potential that makes them suitable to become Buddhas. Even insects have them. So of course, we also as human beings, we also have that potential for becoming Buddhas. We have innate wisdom, we have innate love that can be nurtured and developed to the point in which we develop our Buddha nature. So this is what the past masters of the past have taught, and this is completely in our hands. We can put it into practice.
어디에다 디실샤니 되는 안주들 람름도 마테스 lokshagindasiro nibala sum margomba tinchemba tinso gomba tambon kovala toma mebe rangi kewa yan toma mebe na kishi kimar chede korwana lunda malawa chawada chond magewa chawan ye mela mala sobi nyentu yan magwa meban dole sonso den har macheba mase maumba na yan cheban gyue har macheba mase 마음바야 제반 기회 때들 삼라 랑기 마체발랑 이바 템보 사버 차디 데케나 디 텐템보 소 켈할라 데 마케나 첸첸버소 시메비 체로스.
So keeping that in mind, we will use that as the basis for picking up from the point that we left off in the previous session and looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's middling Lamrim. So in establishing that they all have a likable aspect, something that appeals to your mind um, um, in this form of meditation, we begin with meditating on others as having been one's mother. So the text says, in the sutras, it is taught that since cyclic existence is beginningless, your births are also beginningless. Therefore, we have been born and we have died incessantly. So that there is no body in cyclic existence that we have not taken, no place where we not have been born, and also no one who has not been a relative such as our mother. Moreover, not only have they been a mother in the past, they will also be so in the future. Therefore, reflecting in that way, try to gain firm certainty that they have been your mother. For once that certainty arises, it will be easy to remember the kindness and so forth. On the other hand, if it does not arise, you will have no basis for remembering the kindness and so forth.
There's ditola sound di penata samjatan ma chenyo basla di lol ma shon watin di tending yung chogro wasra anzo nelu khanda jing bai na ya chama anzo lol ya shon gorse lab thu maro ta yim bai na ya ani kewa ni kewa gyuni rogo ya ti chatan ko ngoyo res ine 대양 anzo lol sta shungyo mardi na ya di ko 아니 쇼야게 탑시 제바나 베네 깨워 치마로 킬렘바 임바이나 수수 무세 나로라야 디기 싸워치 임바디 야자자레스 간사나 깨워 치마 킬람비 거든 쪼드 가레스 라운디 깨워 치마 킬랑이 메디기 아니 깨워 치마라야 펜비기 자와치라야 죽어야 된다 고마데 데려와서 깨워 치마 킬람비 거든디 So the
first step is to think of all sentient beings as having been our mothers. But it's still difficult. We can't really get a head around how all living beings have been our mother. To be able to think about it, we need to think of going through a succession of lives, from one after life after life. But even that is something that is difficult to get a head around. It's difficult to do it. But this way of thinking for us will become the root of developing happiness and well-being. So if you think of going forward in a succession of life, moving on to next life, if a person that does accept the existence of future lives would be a person also that would be more inclined to do something in order to bring about happiness in next life. So if the person, or if someone develops that certainty that future lifetimes do exist, they will be also inclined to do something to secure happiness and well-being in the future.
nganzu kewa chima kelan sawe jilaya kewa chima di yagbu chi yongya dyogri mato kewa chima dukja yongya di suchik dyog marwa sarwa ta yagbu yongya ki gyu di kewa di tolya ta dhubgo korwa sarwa kewa chima dhub sawe jilaya kewa chima yagbu yongya ki gyu dhubgin slawen di kukbarwa ta kewa chima yagbu yongya ki gyu di ten delaya dhubon kewa chima laya pemba di kari yori slawen sin dig gunner launch kazus chembu chiga bayna mepemba gachi gatan bares manzu kesa cheme badi gachi gatan bares ta din ze kewa chimala pemba chigiyo badi ani gebi chawati so sewami bi chawati kanji sewami bi chawati res ta di tudriyala ya mantala ya ani shenla neba shida chebo pombige gamdri domba tsam mantala ya tinchi 마송 바이나 아니 겨치말이야 펜비 잡아주야지 더 패시 요 말이스 딘자 딘리치 송 바이나 셴라야 네버 시다지고 pom비기 동바질이야 네바이나 다가랑기 아니 셈라야 시딕 자와치 축조거레스 라디 가즈 공벌 땅도 디 저기 랑기 셈려바 있나 아니 르데와 디용디기 깨어치마 킬렘바이나 깨어치마를 펜바마스 센들이야 아니 시디 박배분간에 메시키에 토게 자와치 축조원자 아니 깨어치마 승인디 남비숑네 셰데디 미질레 썸다는 대원 등에다 동안 문등이질에 썸다면은 배 개첨부 인지민지 소수 셈려야 아니 깨워치면 숑투게 탑시 제거에 빼마세와 개침을 하셨어.
So then, a person that does think that future lifetimes exist, a person that accepts the existence of future lives, would then start to think of what will occur to them in their next life. And of course, everyone would like positive things to occur in the future life. No one wishes for bad things to occur to them. So then, if we wish for positive things to arise for us, to come to pass in future lifetimes, we need to create the causes for them, to practice the causes for positive things to occur. And as such, we need then to think of what will be of benefit to me in the future. So it is very clear that whatever possession, money, wealth, and so forth we have in this life, they will not help us in future lifetimes. So what will help? Well, what will help is virtue, abstaining from harming others, abstaining from harm on the basis of harm. So then when we think about it, then at the bare minimum, you can say taking up the refuge vow and committing to a behavior in which we abstain from harming others is and the basis of that harm will be the basis for developing happiness and well-being in future life. And if we don't do even that, well, it'd be difficult to think that we create causes for happiness and well-being in the future. But if we do that, if we at least commit to that bare minimum of abstaining from harming others, giving up on harming others, and the basis of that harm, with the orientation of thinking that in future lifetimes, on that basis, we will develop positive states, then also as a result of that, your mind in this life will be made more at ease, more peaceful or serene. And that also will have an effect over our physical well-being. So not only will be beneficial for future lifetimes, but you can say that incidentally, it would also affect this lifetime. So this is really important point to think of. It's important to think about what will occur to us in future lifetimes, as well as what will be of benefit to us in the future.
그래서 니버 틴템바데 다 마이 틴템바이나 아니 틴템부지 나도 배나 소소래 까딘진 바지 통바이나 아니 랑싱기 텔이야 아니 잠질래야 지금 용거도 진짜 마이 틴텐 거레스 다 마이 심자담지 마이 바 아니 데 틴템바이 바 템발이야 통말 아니 소수기 신디 마티 톨이야 신디 마티 나도 까고래야 신디 마티야 틴템부인 바지 소투고 요마라서 상로 마다마이나
So the next step after having recognized sentient beings as having been a mother is to remember the kindness, or to think, to be mindful of their kindness. So if you become mindful of someone's kindness, then a sense of affection or care for that person will arise in your mind. So to become mindful, to think of or to become mindful of the kindness of sentient beings in the state of having been your mother, for that to arise, then it's important to think of the kindness of your mother in this life and to develop an appreciation of your mother in this life.
텔레더니 단지마 시우쇼여 숨전 탐지 마르곰비 워토 토머 신디 말라 곰나 킹요 포도에 샤바터 곰바차데스 dundu man number 7 식삼라 신디 다다 파르도 마세 코 토마메바니 다기 마 장린데바치 제바 인냠도 랭가시 삼모 대다 티 마치비 투스 never tamje le cap pende tamje drup caber to sendi ya 당보 응아도 유ringu 송 데니 찌비 투스 부상이 어시 샤이 트레저 소무주 칼라인 노쇼노 nombu kene nab kechi mazangwa labi chigi tabna suki kyonga meba su 대양 쬐금 기투수 사동단 캬비투수 거당 퐁비투수 노 랑기 쳔mer 자완 남진 요제 된 남자 데라 니니 민기 딕두 땅에다 시지 샨당 젤니 제바인 폴라 나사소 둥을 존나 부치위 치와위 랑치와당 번나와위 랑나와솔라 삼바타바니 담시 저와 디사위 탑치바인 도나 랑기 시체다 뉴체기 펜데 강유 줍 네버도 둥을 세워지비 술나마 찌치도 삼보 대들 곰비 틴틴비 로 측점문바시 끼바나 데네 팔아 소빈 자시 샹라야 마르시버질라 곰 데네 파만 남자 마르시버질라 곰 데네 자시 드비 로케바나 잔 남자 마르시 시버질라 곰 텔라 마단 드비 로케바나 순전 탐질라 마시봉 혼두땅 림기 로 제체 땅라 곰오스.
So then in reading through the section that explains the way to think of the kindness of others, it says, meditate according to Geshe, who maintain that the memory of the kindness will arise quickly after meditating on all sentient beings as your mothers, if you initially meditate on your mother of this life. Visualize your mother in front of you in a clear aspect and repeatedly reflect. She has been my mother not only now, but countless times previously in beginningless rounds of existence. In that way, when she was your mother, she protected you from all harm and accomplished all happiness and benefit for you. In particular, even in this life, she initially carried you in her womb for a long time. Then after she gave birth to you, she pressed your yellow tousled hair against the heat of her body, swung you on her 10 fingers, nursed you with her milk, fed you and wiped away your snot with her mouth, cleansed your feces with her hands, and cared for you untiringly in many different ways. In addition, she gave you food and drink when you were hungry or thirsty. She gave you clothing when you were cold. In times of need, she gave you her possessions so that she would not spend on herself. When everyday necessities were hard to come by, she bore great hardship and spared herself no bad action, suffering, or bad talk to get them and give them to you. Whenever a child suffered from a disease and so forth, she wished from the depth of her heart to die rather than for her child to die, for herself to be ill rather than for her child to be ill, and so forth. With effort, she did whatever she could to eliminate her child's suffering. To summarize, by whatever degree of knowledge and whatever degree of ability she had, she thought single-pointedly about ways to bring about your happiness and benefit and to remove any harm and suffering from you. If by meditating in this way, a mind remembering her kindness, that is not just words arises, then meditate on recognizing other friends and relatives, your father and so forth, as also having been your mothers. Then you meditate on recognizing neutral persons as having been your mothers. When a similar mind arises towards them as that towards your friends and relatives, you should also meditate on recognizing your enemies as having been your mothers. When a similar mind arises towards them as that towards your mother, proceed to recognizing all beings as having been your mothers and meditate, gradually extending it more and more.
이렇게 샤워네.
Picture A. 맞아, 아니 단도 가르치나? 그래, 단도디 정도. All right, so we will leave the text here for today. Quite a few people took precepts today, so we need to have an early lunch. So we will finish off today with reciting the final Lamrim prayer. For my two collections vested space that I'm amassed from working with effort in this practice for a great length of time. May I become the chief living Buddha for all those whose mind's wisdom eyes blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all lives, Manjushri. May I find the best of complete graded paths of the teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by my practice. Using skillful means, drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings, with the points of the path as I've discerned them. May I uphold Buddha's teachings for a very long time. With my heart going up with great compassion, in whatever direction, the most precious teachings have not yet spread, or once spread have declined. May I reveal this treasure of happiness and aim. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace. And may the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time by even this graded path enlightenment, completed due to the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their sons. May all human and non-human beings who eliminate adversity and create conducive conditions for practicing the excellent path never departed in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtues practices, may always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere. Thank you.